Pull your phone out of your pocket and look at how many recent notifications you might have. Text messages, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, game notifications. Think about how you use your phone every single day and what it means to you. Now think about what it might mean to other people around the world. My name is Brianna Samudio, and I am here today to tell you exactly how your dependence on your cell phone affects the rest of the world, particularly in the Congo, which is a major resource for Coltan, and that's a major component in all electronics. Living in an industrialized nation, it's very unusual for somebody not to have a cell phone, laptop, or a tablet. And thus, the demand for Coltan increases as our demand for technology increases every single year. Our actions serve as the driving force for what occurs in the Congo. Recently, I took a course on the effects of industrialization and how it affects the rest of the world and how Americans tend to be very blind to the process. One major area of focus was the Congo, and after finishing the course, I obtained a lot of information about how this works. Coltan mining is used in the Congo to finance war, encourage rape, and industrialized worlds refuse to acknowledge the effects of what happens to citizens in the Congo. Money received for Coltan is used to finance Congolese armies, and this encourages violence and war. According to Kathleen Kern's work, Human Cost of Cheap Cell Phones, Coltan mining in Rwanda increased by double, and then Congolese armies were funded with around $20 million per month. This is a result of looting because UN has released a report stating that Coltan mining hasn't actually increased in Rwanda, while the Rwandan government has released multiple reports saying that it has. The same is also true of diamonds. Of course, the Rwandan government has released statements saying that their diamond mining has increased by double, where the UN statements have shown that there is no increase at all. In a report by Imatiyaz Delawala, the Rwandan army made at least $250 million over a period of 18 months. And this is extremely inaccurate because there is no Rwandan Coltan mining at all. And then, of course, this is also a result of smuggling because Rwandan armies are able to financially survive based off of this money, even though there's no Coltan coming in or out of the country. Kern claims that the Rwandan government uses military aid it receives from the U.S. to fund the RCD, which is a Congolese army particular to that area. And this is estimated to be about $75 million a year. And Rwandan militias receive about $5 million from Citibank, New York, and aid has increased from $26.1 million to $51.5 million, and this amount of money is coming from Belgium, Denmark, Japan, Switzerland, and the United States. And this money is also used to finance Congolese armies. Now what's unfortunate is that this money funds the armies, and then these men will go out into the civilization and unfortunately attack women. Women become the target of rape and violence, and this is used as a sort of weapon of war. So Jean Mullery, she is a member of the Protestant Women's Society of North Kivu. She particularly documents these cases, and unfortunately these cases were unheard of before the war. And a couple of disturbing stories are one woman delivered a stillborn child a day after her 3-year-old died, and a bunch of men, soldiers, Congolese soldiers, came into her home, 5 of them, and gang raped her. And her husband fled the scene and then later on blamed her and married another woman. And then another girl became pregnant after she was raped by 3 different Congolese soldiers, and she became so mentally unstable that she's now unable to speak, and her mother kicked her out of the family, and she no longer has a place to live. And another unfortunate problem with this is that HIV has spread throughout these women. From about 1/4 to 1/3 of women have now contracted HIV, and once they contract this disease, they're seen as contaminated people. and they're kicked out of their villages along with their children, even though the children have no issue and no part in what has happened. The UN Fund for Women estimates about 100,000 women have been raped throughout the course of the year since the war has started. But what's unfortunate is that a lot of women probably haven't gone forward and documented their story either because they were scared or felt threatened by these men. So the numbers are probably a lot higher than just 100,000 women. And then unfortunately, corporations refuse to acknowledge what has happened. They refuse to acknowledge that their demand for coltan has been financing these wars. And instead of sticking to ethical practices, corporations are buying minerals from the Congo, even with knowledge of what's going on. And then they deny any accusations made against them. In the documentary by Frank Polson, it's called Blood in the Mobile, he attempts to confront Nokia, which is his phone carrier, on their usage of coltan from the Congo. But unfortunately, he receives very little information. In the beginning, he attempts to call a bunch of representatives, and each one of them denies his call, or they refuse to give a statement on what has happened, or just no answer whatsoever. And then later on, he meets with a representative from Nokia who claims that they are taking the first steps to fixing this problem, although the problem was first acknowledged in 2001, and later on in this documentary, it's now 2010. 10 years later, the company is finally starting to try to fix the problem. Then he goes to Germany and he visits the Federal Institute of Natural Resources and Geological Science. And then here he is told that there actually is a way to trace where coltan is coming after companies have claimed there is no way to trace where they're coming from. This geologist, he states that what they can do is find a sample of coltan and then measure its volume. And then based off of this, they can see like the composition of all of the coltan and where it might come from because it has a different geological age. And this geological age is particular to each area of the Congo. So it makes it a lot easier to be able to determine where it might come from and show that smuggling does occur across borders. And then this kind of shows how it might be a blood mineral and how it's related to these Congolese armies in each region. Finally, instead of an interview with the CEO of Nokia after Frank Polson was denied an interview, he meets with the director of the Department of Social Responsibility, which is basically somebody who just kind of deals with the ethical background of the company actions. He states that this issue is a community problem and that the consumers need to address the problem rather than just the company addressing it. He says that he's very optimistic and that this might be able to, drive the company forward and possibly acknowledge the problem and solve it. But he says that the road there is very complicated and it's very unlikely that it will be solved soon, even though not many steps have been taken already. And then Kathleen Kern writes about a UN panel report that named about 85 multinational companies who were accused of using coltan from the Congo. And unfortunately, none of these companies were really put to the test to change these problems. Governments of any country like Belgium or the United States intervened on the company's behalf and told them that there was no issue and that the company was using ethical practices. And then companies protested the panel's report, and eventually they were moved into a category that was called resolved. And there was no evidence whatsoever of how these cases were resolved or that any company had taken action to change what was going on. So we've seen how the need for coltan is essential to our lifestyle, but it influences war, rape, and industrialized nations don't want to pay any attention to any of these things. And little action, unfortunately, is taken. The demand for coltan causes negative impacts on the Congo, and our industrialized nations just don't see that, and we keep demanding more and more coltan for our electronics without thinking of how it might affect them. So it's important for everybody to take action. It's important for you as an individual to address your senators, your congressmen, and ask them to develop any sort of law that they possibly can to make sure that all companies are using coltan that has been traced efficiently and that they're not being used to fund any armies. And then it's also our job to ask our electronic companies, just like Frank Polson did, and question them and their actions. And then, of course, it's also your responsibility to make sure that you are using any company that does not actually use these products, and make sure that we are consciously choosing our companies that make sure they know where their resources are coming from. And then, once that's all established, I believe that we can make this world a much better place, and that we will eventually help the Congo instead of harming them. Because change, it does start with us. Thank you.